This meeting is broadcast live on Spectrum Cable TV, channel 1303, and streamed simultaneously on the Town of Bucksport YouTube channel. Roll call, Ed Rankin.
Here.
Tracy Hare.
Here.
Rabs.
Here.
Thank you. Next is election of a chair. Open the floor to nominations for chair of the Finance and Investments Committee.
Nominate Tracy Hare.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll make a motion,
Yep.
Tracy for chair.
We have a motion and a second. Anyone else? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? It is yours.
So the first item on the agenda, if folks have had a chance to review the quarterly financial statements, just keeping in mind that this is the second quarter, correct? Ending on December 31st. Open that for discussion.
Well, I'll just give a brief summary if that's okay.
Please, yeah.
Obviously, at this point in the year, with 6 months being completed, we'd be looking at our budgets to be at approximately the 50% mark. And as you can see in here, our expense budget's at 48.79%, which is good. And our revenues are coming in slightly above that midpoint at 55.84%, which is a good thing as well. And I would just point out, as we wrote in the summary here, that at this point in the year, both of our enterprise funds, our sewer fund and our marina fund, both show losses at this point of the year. On the sewer side, that is primarily attributed to our debt service payment, which is over $400,000 gets paid in the first half of the year, so that's not proportionally spread out over the year. And also, it's just worth saying that we would anticipate the sewer fund to end the year in a deficit because sewer fees were not adjusted fully in this year's budget to get to where they need to be for that to more or less break even. And then on the marina side, a vast majority of our slip fees come in the late spring, early summer. So there's still a lot of money to come in there. So that's kind of a high level overview. Happy to answer any questions.
No questions came up for me. I thought it was, it just makes sense that it's rolled out over a year's expenditures and revenues. Any questions from the committee? Comments?
No, I think it's important to point out that most of our capital payments and major payments come out in the first half of the
They
year.
do.
And that is, so I think that puts us in pretty good shape, being
Yeah.
at 48%.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks for preparing that, Rachel. And Jacob.
It's a joy.
Well,
It's a joint
there's two
effort.
signatures on it, so
Right.
but it's helpful, and I think it's really helpful to check in quarterly to
I
get
agree.
a sense. So. Moving right along, the next part of the agenda is about the fund balance reserves, and Jacob, if you could tee off that as well.
Happy to. It has been a while since the council has reviewed our CIP reserve fund balances. That should ideally occur during the process, during the budget process on a yearly basis. And I don't believe that that's been occurring for at least a number of years. And so I thought it was important for us, for the council and the committee, to be able to take a look at these as we head into the budget process. That way we can all more or less be on the same page there, and also just so that we'll have the understanding of that this will be included in your budget book moving forward on a yearly basis, so there's not going to be long periods of time where the committee or the council doesn't review these. So if I could, I'd like to just touch on some of them that I identified in the memo here. And it's important to note that these are unaudited beginning balances. We don't have our fiscal year 25 audit in yet. I spoke to the auditor today. He anticipates us having that within the next couple of weeks. But we are confident that there's not going to be a significant change in these beginning balances. So just going over some of the reserves are in a deficit. And I think it's just worth kind of discussing what has impacted that, what has led to that. And we can just start off. The first is the IT reserve. That's a deficit right now of a little over $87,000. And this is a result of routine operating expenses that were either budgeted for in the IT operating budget or should have been budgeted in the IT operating budget, coming out of this reserve, which has resulted in this reserve being drawn into the negative. So I'd be able to identify one specific big project that did this. It appears to be, a number of just routine yearly expenses that were coming out of here that should have been out of the operating budget.
I'm assuming we'd change that moving forward now.
We started that, I think, in the current year budget. We've made those changes in the budget we're in right now. And so moving forward, that's not going to continue. The second is the fire equipment reserve. Again, that's at a deficit of just over $84,000 right now. And that goes back to the tanker 2 chassis replacement that the council approved, I think 3 or 4 years ago now. And it was Resolve 22-15. The council authorized a loan in the amount of just shy of $170,000, but the town never actually took out that loan, which is something that we've kind of run into recently on a couple of other different projects. So that has drawn that reserve into the negative. And what my recommendation would be to go for that loan now, like we've done with some of these other projects. And by doing so, that's going to bring that reserve back into a positive balance of, again, over $80,000. So with the committee's blessing, the council's blessing, I think that we would like to bring that back at a future meeting to award that financing. The middle school reserve shows a deficit of $11,000. That goes back years. We went as far back as fiscal year 2018, which is as far back as our accounting trio, our budgetary system. That's as far back as we can review without trying to go and up to storage and pull paper files. So that stems, I don't know the origin of what that is. The recreation facility reserve, that's a deficit of $23,000. That's attributable to for the most part, everyday operating expenses associated with the swimming pool, items such as chlorine, the opening and the closing of the pool. That's never actually been budgeted in the recreation department budget, and it should have been, and it will be moving forward. But routine operating expenses associated with the swimming pool is what goes back to that. And then along those lines, the swimming pool reserve, that's a deficit of $99,000. And again, that goes back to, there were some significant repair projects that were done over the last 5 years that have impacted that reserve. Waterfront improvements, this appears to be a number of things. In 2018, the town did work on the town dock. There was a replacement project that was done there. We replaced the fishing pier a number of years ago. That came out of this. And there's also, some engineering costs associated to the town dock project, the upcoming town dock project that has gone through that as well. What I would say there is that the revenue that we have received from American Cruise Line this year has nearly brought that reserve to a positive, which is good. But there's still some outstanding engineering costs. I think $17,000 is the number that Richard gave to me. That's associated with the town dock project that will be coming out of this as well. I would point out that the highway improvement reserve started out the year with a deficit of over $400,000, and that goes back to the Jacob Buck Pond, Bucks Mills culvert replacement project. And so you can see with that $560,000 loan, what that has done is it's brought that reserve back up to a positive balance of over $130,000, which is a good thing. And I would just point out that the highway equipment reserve looks high. It looks, as though there's $442,000 in it, but we have not paid the bill for the new plow truck yet that was approved, I believe, in the last year's budget, I believe, or the current year budget. But we have not received that plow truck yet, so that's why we haven't paid that invoice.
Don't have
So-
to pay that until we actually get it in our hand.
Correct, but it looks as though there's a lot more money in that right now when we know that we have a significant expense that's gonna come out of that. And so I guess the question is, where do we go from here? How do we go from here? And I've identified, a few different avenues that I am recommending that we go in effort to continue improving upon this. And the first would be to continue proceeding with loans that were either authorized by the voters or authorized by the council, but never taken out. I would recommend that we continue that practice. We've done that again with the Jacob Buck Pond project, and this is another area that I would recommend doing that. And the second after that, the second would be discontinuing old, outdated, no longer needed reserves. We have a few things in here that there really is no longer a need for. Those reserves could be discontinued and the funds could be transferred from those reserves into accounts with deficit balances. That will help.
I'm assuming those would not be reserves that had loan money attached to them, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And so that would be the second thing. And the third thing, after all of that has taken place, and we have a good picture, we have the 25 audit in hand, so we know what the starting balances were, and we know roughly where we're gonna close out the year, would be to proportionally transfer amongst all of the reserves that have positive balances in them, whatever the deficit that remains after we do the first two steps, transfer from those into those deficit balances, bring those reserves to zero to give us an actual, real picture as to how much money is actually in each one of those reserves. My recommendation would be to do that proportionally, meaning that, if the highway equipment reserve makes up 25% of the fund balance, then you would, whatever amount is needed for the deficit, you would use 25% of that. That way, everybody it's proportional, and at the end of the day, everybody still has the same percentage of the fund balance. It's just a slightly smaller amount, but it gives staff and the council, an accurate depiction of how much money is actually in each reserve. So that's a lot that I've kind of given to you all at once. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, the only question that came up for me, which you just answered, was, so those reserves that are attached to a note we can't shuffle those
No.
around to other reserves.
Well, there has to be enough money to make the debt service payment, certainly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's very clear. I think it's a good path forward, and my hope would be that the council would consider, particularly the loan piece, because I think, we want to show up interest rates and all of those things, but taking out the loans sort of would prevent that cliff, that financial cliff that we experience with sudden increases in costs for citizens. So I kind of had wished we had loaned all along, because the interest rates are probably higher now. But I think it's a good path forward. Yeah.
Just a quick question, and I know it may seem obvious, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. So knowing, in the context of this conversation and others, I think, moving forward, is it safe to say Jacob, that your approach will be that expenses will live in the expense budget entirely?
Operating expenses need to live in our operating budgets. Routine yearly expenses that we know that we have need to be budgeted for, and department heads know this. And I should back up, none of this was any department head's fault. I'm not pointing blame, that's not the intent of my conversation here. You know, it was more just to bring awareness to the council.
Mhm.
But yes, everyday operating expenses need to come from operating budgets. Capital improvement reserves are to be used for exactly that, capital improvement projects.
And so the corresponding money for that expense, if it were to be paid from a reserve, would show in the revenue budget for the same year.
Say that again?
So if there's an operating expense that we're paying for, or an expense that we're paying for out of a capital improvement budget, we would be able to see that in an expense line and a revenue line.
Well, it would need to be, if it's an operating expense, it just would need to be budgeted for in the operating budget. There's not necessarily gonna be a revenue line associated with that.
Okay. So if we're paying for something, however, out of a capital improvement account,
There is, within the capital improvement fund, there is an expense line
what I'm
associated to
getting.
that
Yep.
reserve, and there's a revenue line associated with that reserve. Yes,
perfect,
yes.
that's where I'm getting.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
I imagine it will make sort of real-time understanding of what a department operating budget is. It feels like we have sort of been operating sort of on a skewed system where we don't actually know how much it costs to run X, Y, and Z. This will give us a better sense, department by department, too.
I would agree with that, and I've made it clear both to my staff, and I think I've said it at the council level, that moving forward, it's going to be very, very important that if there is something that the town wants to spend money on, then we need to budget for it. It's really that simple. We can't, everybody up here wants to be able to say yes to all the nice projects and all the nice things that come before us, which is fine. We just need to budget for it. That's I'll probably sound, a little repetitive during the budget process, but that it's gonna be very important. Again, if we wanna continue improving upon kind of where we're at, that's gonna be a very important and crucial piece.
Yeah. I mean, it's an important part of discernment. When we did the cruiser for the K-9, that was budgeted in. It was a fairly straightforward allocation because we had discussed it in budget season, and it was fairly easy to push through. It helped to have it, the picture. Comments, questions?
So what I would like to do in this sense is any sort of either discontinuing a reserve or moving money around, transferring money, anything like that is gonna require council approval. So if it's okay with the committee and the council, we'd like to, again, wait till we get our 25 audit in so that we can see kind of what our numbers, what we truly started this fiscal year out with, and, forecast what our expenses are gonna be for the rest of the year, and then bring, again, a resolve back to the council to try and address this and bring these all back. Again, this is something that the auditor, made pretty clear when he talked about, a fresh start, starting from zero. This is kind of some of the stuff that we need to do in order to get to that place. So we'd like to bring that back as a resolve to the council.
Look forward to it. Okay. Any further questions, comments? So the next item on the agenda is review and recommendation regarding updated animal shelter contracts.
So I will start on this, and we have Director Gagan and DC Winchester and our Animal Control Officer Bishop in attendance tonight also. But I included in your packets a copy of what our current animal shelter use contract is. And I have also included a proposed contract for the committee to review. And essentially, you will see that our current contract is rather short. It doesn't address a number of things that a normal standard services contract that municipalities have would address, such as liability and insurance, things along those lines. And there's also, the expectations of, what's expected of the municipalities that contract with us, and what our role in that all, it is not spelled out very well, kind of in our current contract. And so, certainly as a protection to us and just so that, the communities that we contract with, just so that we're all more or less on the same line, we would like to see a new contract used that, and again, I think what you would find is that this very much mirrors, standard animal shelter contracts used by, the Waterville Humane Societies and the Bangor Humane Societies of our region. This contract was very much kind of mirrored around those. And so that's part of it, is again, trying to make things a little bit more concrete and more defined, and have the contract align more closely with what our town code says as far as animal shelter rules and what the expectations are. And the second piece of it is to increase the per capita rate that we charge. Bucksport currently charges $1 per capita, and the amount needed for us to essentially break even, which is what we've talked about for some other things, would be $2.30 per capita. And so that is part of the recommendation also, is to raise that per capita amount as well. So if you all would like to add anything, you're welcome to.
I just appreciate you putting this together. I mean, I think it's really helpful to sort of what if scenarios, so, and especially going down to the minutia of setting the animal control officer's hours, for example, and it just like removes any ambiguity as far as what our role is, what their role is, who's responsible for everything. So I think, I personally, I think it's an improvement.
Absolutely, it's just like the ambulance fees services, you
Yeah.
know. We've gotta come up so Bucksport taxpayers aren't paying for other towns.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Couple things. Number one, if we move the $2.30 per capita up a little to create a reserve or an emergency fund. Right now, we're breaking even. Maybe to the point of 5% would go to an emergency fund or a reserve, not out to gig people, but to have that little cushion. And then number two is, does this take effect?
July.
July 1st or January 1st and retro these
July.
towns back? Okay.
Close our fiscal year, July through June 30th.
All of the towns that we currently we bill them in early July for that fiscal.
That answers,
all,
I that's what I was really heading, where we bill them.
Yeah.
Or whether we're in a marina kind of.
No, we bill them
environment.
1st of July, I believe, is when you guys, send those letters out, so. And I would just add, this does not change the boarding fee for cats, nor the boarding fees for dogs. Those would stay the same. Right now, I believe we have a 10-day maximum that we charge them, so basically after 10 days, we charge them either the $90 for a cat or the $120 for a dog, and then we, to put it bluntly, own the animal. It's our animal. So
I would imagine we'd have a discussion down the road with the new shelter of looking at those fees, though. If we have an improved facility down the road, one can only dream, right? But I think that would be worth a discussion if that were to happen.
yeah, I agree.
Because it would cost more to heat, to operate essentially a newer building.
And I would just, one last thing, I would add that this expense total that you have on this last page is what is in the proposed budget that will be before the council this coming year. So this is using the numbers that our staff have come up with as an operating budget for 7/1/2026.
So pardon me, in other words, if, for example, we decided as part of the budget process to move that number of $2.30 per capita, back to Councilor Rab's point, that we could do that in the budget. I think I know the answer to this question, I'm just saying it so that we're having a conversation.
You can do that. The only thing that I would add is I would like to handle this similarly to how we handle the ambulance agreements, and that I would like to give municipalities a little bit of notice that,
Yep.
because it is an increase, it's gonna be, more than doubling for them, so I would like these municipalities, we've had conversations with some of them, but I'd like to give them some sort of notice so that they can budget for it accordingly in their own municipal budgets. And so I guess there's nothing to say that we have to decide on that per capita fee right now if we wanted to revisit that at an upcoming meeting, but
I tend to agree with town manager that to stagger it a little bit, I like the idea, but I think since we're going up so much, it might make sense to stagger it.
Well, the ambulance agreement too has a 5% increase
Yeah.
for the next,
built into it.
that's
yeah.
what we've done with what Verona has signed off on. Or if we don't wanna make it 5%, to use a CPI index or some sort of an adjustment every year, so we don't get
Fall
ourselves.
behind.
Yeah.
So 6 of 1.
Great. Moving right along, same topic, different approach. The Animal Control Services Agreement with the Town of Verona Island.
So the town of Verona has approached us. They currently contract with Hancock County for animal control services. And they have approached us to explore the possibility of them contracting with us for us to provide ACO services to them. And staff and myself have had a number of meetings over the past month or two to kind of talk about what this would look like and talk about whether this was feasible and how much of an impact it would be, certainly on Autumn's workload. And I think where we have come to is that we do feel as though it is feasible, and that we don't anticipate it being a significant strain or an additional a considerable amount of additional work for Autumn. And it's really structured in such a way that any complaint would need to be handled during Autumn's work hours, and anything outside of that, there would need to be arrangements made somehow for the animal to either be dropped off at our shelter by the complainant or a representative over there, or something along those lines. Maybe wait till the next day, anything like that. So I think kind of what our request is, initially we'd like just a 5-month agreement to get us to July 1. And then I think we'd like to try it for a year's time and see how it goes, and kind of determine what sort of an impact it's having on our staff, and just kind of try it on a trial basis and see how it goes. We've come up with just a flat fee of $5,000 that Verona would pay us to go towards our animal control officers' salary and expenses. So anything you guys want to add? You're a quiet bunch tonight.
And Verona, I'm assuming, is on board
They
for the
are.
most part.
They are. Yeah, they are.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Council? It's really well thought out. I think the quiet audience is just an attest to the well-presented package. Thank you.
And I would just say, part of these discussions, when we talk about municipalities contracting with us for the shelter and this, we look at what they average for animals on a yearly basis. And, Verona is a pretty pretty small amount of animal complaints that they deal with on a yearly basis, so.
It's because you're not dealing with deer.
Nor do we want to.
Thank you for putting that together, and I just really appreciate the thought into it. These are really solid contracts, protects the town of Bucksport, provides good service to our communities, and it's a fair shake. So, yeah, thank you.
Is that 5 months, is that prorated?
Yes. Yes,
And the 5,000 will start July 1?
correct.
The only thing that jumped off the page for me from the previous item on the agenda tonight is we go all the way to Bar Harbor.
Yeah, that's a new we don't go all, they come to us.
Oh,
We don't go
Okay.
all the way there.
okay, that answers that next question. I was like, because we'll never
No.
see her again. It'll be-
No. They come to us.
Especially in August.
It's about $2,083 to get us to the next billing piece.
Yeah.
So what, is there a breakdown of which towns we do go to versus
We don't go to
they
any
all
of them.
come to us?
The only one that we, if the council approves this, that we contract with is Verona.
Verona.
Everybody else comes to
It's
us.
just shelter.
Right.
Great. So you're not looking for any action tonight as much as just reviewing the recommendations?
It is
and
on the,
assuming It's on the council agenda.
two things are on the, so the recommendation would be,
To move them.
moving forward to
Okay.
council, yeah.
So, let's separate them. So do we have a motion to make a recommendation to move the updated animal shelter contract to council?
Motion.
Second,
Second.
in favor? Do we have a motion on the table to move a recommendation regarding the animal control services agreement to town council?
Motion.
Do we have a second? All in favor? Great, unless there's other discussion?
Just the, Rich's resolve,
Oh, yes,
if the
Yes,
committee would be
sorry,
willing
Rich.
to look at
we
that.
certainly have time, so.
I gave them, I left each of you a copy on your, in your seats.
Yeah.
So Rich, if you wouldn't mind coming up.
What you have in front of you is a request to increase the marina dockage rates. It's a 5% increase over last year. That's for seasonal as well as the monthly dockage rates at the marina. Overnight transient will remain the same. And all the town dock stuff will stay at the same as well. Simply to generate some more revenue. All the docks are new, so we feel that now is the appropriate time to really ask for more fair value.
And in comparison to
We're still cheap.
marinas in our areas.
We're still cheap.
We're still waiting list.
With these
And
rates.
there is still a waiting list, yes.
Are we, last year, last budget season when we went through this, I think you raised the rates 15%. It was in that kind of a range. It seemed to me that we were still.
We
20
raised them so that we would get ourselves out of the hole. I can't remember precisely what the increase was, but that was to get us out of the hole.
The, I read someplace on one of the reports that the cruise ships this year will number, not the ones seeking safe harbor, but the normal routine of ships will be about 20.
It's exactly 20, yes.
Okay. With these rates as proposed, are we going to be at a break-even point with the reduced number of ships?
Two different.
Two different budgets. So cruise ships are part of the town dock budget. So as part of the report that the town manager read to you earlier, the fee that American Cruise Line pays to come here, that goes to the waterfront account. Now, what I will say is that the rate that you see on this sheet for cruise ships, $3 a foot, that does not pertain to American Cruise Lines. We have a
Separate contract?
separate contract with them, so if any other cruise line would like to come in, they would pay the $3 amount. So to answer your question, where I think you're asking me is the contracted price of the cruise ship at the lower cost to American Cruise Lines, we make more money charging less for the cruise ship per foot than with the amount that we requested versus the amount they proposed at the higher dollar rate. It would take, I think we figured it would take two and a quarter to 2.5 more times that many cruise ships for American Cruise Lines for it to not make sense for the town. And we won't see that many because summer's not that long.
Questions or comments? Do you have a recommendation to move this result to council tonight, oh my gosh, I'm hitting it out tonight. Dock Marina dockage rates to council.
Motion.
Second,
Thank you.
thank you, Rich.
And the next item on the agenda is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.